In your sister's story, well, it's obviously incredibly sad. What it does show us is that it is possible to recover. I'm grateful that you got those years with her towards the end where you were able to have those brother-sister conversations again. Unfortunately, she recovered too late for her body to recover with her. And what it tells us is that we need to make an urgent change to save the lives who are on our street, that can still be saved before it's too late. So as a prosecutor, as the elected prosecutor in this county, what can you do at this point to try to help with that? What programs do you recommend? What are you pushing for so we can get intervention before it's too late?
Well, if the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. That's what I believe, and that's what medical science tells us. We need to create an army of people who will go out and make connections with people who have lost their way to drug addiction. And instead of investing in more jails and more court time for people, because we know that prosecuting people actually does harm to them, we need to go out and try to find a way to help people get away from the drug addiction, use medication-assisted treatment because it helps get their life back. We also have to change the way that we think about these folks, and it's hard. I mean, and I'm not saying that we don't.
It can be hard.
I'm not saying we don't prosecute the people who burglarize homes and steal cars and do identity theft, the things that are associated with drug use. We'll continue to do that. But for people who are found with tiny amounts of drugs, they have drugs on them all day long, every day. They're committing this felony crime because they are users of drugs. If we really believe that this is a medical issue and a disease, then we should treat it that way.
And we've talked about law enforcement assisted diversion. It's called LEAD. Seattle has used it to some success, and it's now being spread countywide. Where is that in the stages of that being spread?
So we're talking with Burien and Auburn and Kent, and they all want LEAD. LEAD's going to go to North Seattle, to the Aurora area. Our goal is within the next 2 years, take it countywide, and so that it's an option for every police officer has, and it should be their first option. You see, cases come to the courthouse and the jail not because we're the best option, but because we're the only one. We've already been built. And if we want to change the way that we respond to society, we have to build that other thing. We have to build the medical response.
I do want to ask you more in sort of your official capacity. I know we're talking about a lot of personal things. You know, we mention wanting, I think, primarily to get these people, to lift them up and to get them on a better track. But we have seen, related to the homeless crisis, drug abuse, you listed some more serious crimes. I mean, we just saw a rape that had happened. And we've been hearing from a lot of citizens who feel like there's this sort of lawlessness associated with the homeless crisis, that their concerns aren't being taken seriously. So as a prosecutor, how do you balance that? You know, the need to rehabilitate people and put them on a better track with the need to sometimes hold them accountable for their actions.
Believe me, I feel that too. When I drive down the freeway and I see tarps and tents and encampments where people clearly, they come into a neighborhood with their flotilla of RVs and that's their base from which lots of crimes happen. I understand that, and we don't have to tolerate that. And when we will prosecute people for the criminal activity, even if it's motivated by drugs, that's proper. But at the same time, we have to understand the science of addiction and the best way to help people. And it isn't just to create more negative consequences in their life, because actually the definition of addiction is persistent drug use despite negative consequences. And anybody you know who is using drugs, they're homeless. I mean, their life is terrible. It's not fun to be a drug addict.
And I'm sure many of them, if they could stop, they would stop. It's not that easy. I want to end on a kind of a positive note. You had written in this article that, you had a lot of anger at one point towards your sister, admittedly so, but you had said, efforts to judge, shame, and punish those with substance use disorder does nothing to relieve the pain or pull of addiction. So what would your message be, Dan, to those who are out there who also feel anger, frustration towards the homeless or towards those who are suffering from addiction? What maybe advice would you offer them to try to help be part of the solution?
Well, my reactions growing up, and it was one of anger and to really want to isolate my little sister. And what that did is just push her further into a culture of compulsive drug users. Yeah. What we need to try to find in ourselves is the compassion for, whether it's our member of our family or just somebody that we see on the street, to make a connection and bring them back into the community and to tell them that they're worth saving. People who are long-term drug addicts don't think that they're worth anything. there's so much self-loathing involved in using drugs and being an addict. So it's going to take all of us to change the way that we think and the way that we act, not just the people who are using drugs, but those of us who are in positions to make change.
Yeah, sometimes empathy can be a hard thing, especially when you have a personal connection to it. King County Prosecutor Dan Satterberg, we appreciate your perspective and also your willingness to share your family's personal stories. So I'm definitely thinking about you.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thanks for being here. Bill, back over to you.
What a